Headphone Kenny, welcome.
Dude,
You sound like, you look like Joe Rogan right now.
I got the Joe Rogan vibe with the moving camera, with Khurram dripped out in some
Oh,
new
okay.
gear.
I got to give a shout out to the Ones 5K Lifestyle, to Nigel. He set me up for this. I actually won a contest, and then he hit me up on seeing. Actually, I hit him up because my birthday was coming up, and I was like, it'd be really nice to get this stuff. And I was headed to LA, and I got the chance to rock it in LA, and it was nice and cozy. And actually, it's a really nice color because I wear all black. So
That
this
new
is a good
birthday
change.
swag, man. Looking
Birthday
good.
swag.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you,
You know,
bro.
we got our boy Khurram, Second Floor Podcast. We up in it, baby.
Bro, this is New Year, New Us, or New Year, Same Us?
You know what? There's a good mix, man. There's some new, there's some old. I feel like today we got a good topic on our hands, man. We wanted to talk about bullying. You know, what makes us, what breaks us, and what takes us into just different stages of our life, right? I think this is a good topic that you actually wanted to talk about. And I find that so much of what we've gone through in our upbringing, whether it be good or bad, definitely shapes who we are today. And I find bullying, of course, when you grow up being a minority, it's something that a lot of us colored folks have gone through to some degree. Some far worse, some far less worse if we're going to compare, but it's still something that was unwarranted. So I want you to set the intention on what you want people to get out of this conversation today based off our hot topics.
Well, growing up, Daisy, like you were talking about, and not only that, having a mushroom cut to like about grade 10. I think I was an easy target for bullying in its own ways, but I also remember changing and molding myself to be almost racist towards my own kind at a certain point, where I would make the same jokes certain people would make and kind of play along with it, and more so try to accept it. But then after, I remember at a certain point, I started refusing to make those jokes, and I started seeing like the hostility in making those type of jokes and the type of people that I was around in those scenarios. And I think even especially as kids, like you're not really understanding of what's a right joke, what's a wrong joke. The older I get now and the more I deal with kids, I think about like when I see a kid and he's saying certain things, that's a reflection of parenting in its own way, right? That kid has to have heard it somewhere, especially the generation that we were from, where there was a little less cell phones, a little less information online. That information is coming directly from somewhere, and you're making those perceptions off of something.
Even, it's crazy you touch on that because it's just a form of acceptance, right? If everyone's laughing at me talking like my dad as a kid, and people then say, oh, dude, do that thing where you talk like your dad. And then, let's face it, as you get older, you realize, like, damn, are they laughing with me or are they laughing at me? And man, like it's true about what you say, because it made me go back to those moments where I just do that just to get accepted.
Exactly.
If that was my form of acceptance.
And bro, Russell Peters didn't make it any easier. That guy was jokes, and everybody's like, do that Russell Peters thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you do it so good, dude. You do it so good. It's like, well, yeah, because I live with someone that talks like this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be able to, do my best to match it, right?
Yeah, but I think like certain things, I don't know about you, and I guess this is a question for you too, is when you were a kid, did certain things get under your skin that some people would say? And you could see it as a form of bullying?
Of course, man. I got the "you're a terrorist." I got red dot sight. Like, I got this sometimes from people I considered friends.
Yeah.
That's the sad part.
Yeah.
Is I'm calling this person a friend. I'm allowing them to say it. I laugh with them, but underneath my skin, I'm getting cringed, right? There's this one guy, man. I was friends with him. He would, at this time, get an app when the iPhone first came out. And it was an app with gun noises. And he'd be like, heh, heh, chick, chick. Kenny, look, red dot sight right in the middle of your forehead. Now we really know you're Indian. Like, what? Like, what kind of joke is this, bro? And I remember being like, dude, like, ha ha ha. Like, and after a while, I'd be like, it's not funny. And he'd be like, yeah, then why would you laugh at it?
Yeah. And that's the funny part is like we turn to our own feelings and push them to the side and start formalizing a perception that we want to portray as us that's not even us in our deepest roots. Like if we're taking the desi out of us and trying to form to not be bullied in its own way. And at the start, for me, I don't know about you, but at the start, I was more, especially playing basketball, like there wasn't as many brown guys playing basketball. So it was easier to feel like I was on the inside of something else and the brown people were on the outside. So I was trying to get as far away as I could from it in its own way. But at the same time, like it was still like my roots and is what I was like a big part of. But I think what like bullying really started in that, it wasn't even bullying. Like I didn't really see it as bullying, but it did get to me, right? So I would try to make changes. I would try to not be that person, right? And it formed me into a version of me that was Gorasab, right? I was no longer brown boy Khurram or brown boy Khurram. I was white boy Khurram, right? And that's why my mom loves you, because you brought me back to my Desi roots, bro. My mom loves Kenny.
Well, it's scary how much the essence of being quote unquote whitewashed becomes labeled as something you've become. Maybe perhaps in front of other brown people that grew up with other brown people where acting and being brown was encouraged. But this is something you and me really relate to a lot, because we grew up as pretty much the one of only maybe a handful of people who were brown when everyone else was white. And we felt we needed to change in order to fit in. So those whole jokes of Indian accents aside, we felt like we had to become more like everyone else than vice versa in order to once again feel and be accepted. And that in a kid's brain, when you're anywhere between 8 to 15 years old in grade school and you're trying to go through that, there's for lack of a better term, a lot of maybe unannounced stress. It's a stress response that perhaps your mind and your body are dealing with when doing so, because you're constantly working at trying to be accepted. And now you're going through this change of acting in a way that your parents were not even trying to raise you with in the first place. So it's funny you say about the whole parenting thing earlier, but also it's like whatever you as a kid are exposed to in the 8 to 10 hours in your day when your parents are working, that also hugely has an impact on who you choose to become.
Absolutely. And I think like especially as a kid, I moved a ton. I used to live in Lahore, Abu Dhabi, St. John's, like kind of bouncing around all these different places where it's different cultures. And I didn't really understand the concept of culture shock. I was like, bro, it's just a new fucking place and I'm just here doing the same thing I was doing somewhere else. But I will say once the social studies curriculum got changed so many different times, I was like, I remember being confused or being at a point where trying to figure out like, where do I kind of fit into this world? Because there's so many different worlds that I'm kind of experiencing, being a Nufi, being Pakistani, being in an Arab country. And I think that always confused me to the point where it just felt lost. And the first podcast we ever did, I actually requested to take down because it triggered me in its own ways. And I think now I'm able to talk about it a little bit more freely. But the first podcast, I talked about my depression and how bad it kind of was. But now getting a better understanding of how to overcome it and not having those issues anymore, I look back at all those times of when I was bullied or when I was feeling a certain type of way. Like, it wasn't just a bullying. There's a certain level of like just being a kid where you see other people achieving certain things and that you haven't necessarily achieved yet. So you feel incompetent in certain ways and you're like, why are they able to do it but I'm not? In its own way, how I used to be, like, my nickname was Laddu. I was a fat ass, right? I would eat, and even now I could eat till I throw up. There's like, it's a hard thing for me to find a limit.
You were overweight as a kid?
Oh yeah, bro. I was born heavy, so you know the Desi culture is like, oh, he was born heavy. Kana, yeah.
Eat it,
Anytime nice. I was full, they're like, Or throw some more, Kyle,
Yeah.
right?
You were overweight. That's interesting. I was borderline anorexic.
Oh, I was
I
heavily.
was the opposite. I only had my abs, my skinny boy abs that I felt like were like giving me any sort of confidence.
Bro, but you had the do jug in school, and you were walking around with jugs of milk.
No, I know. That's when things changed.
That's when things changed.
That's when Arnold Schwarzenegger started to have an effect on me and KB, right?
But I think like all those things, and on top of that, not really fitting in, and on top of that, having a mushroom cut. There's so many different ways that I used to think that I was just very different, but aren't we all in our own ways? That's the first thing that I kind of understand now. But I used to let a lot of real estate be taken up in my head for me feeling my feelings. But at the start, this is why I loved basketball and sports, is it allowed me to get rid of that pain a little bit, right? And I was able to, whatever I didn't like, I could put that same energy and repurpose it towards basketball and feel better about myself, because the better I was at something, the better I felt about myself, and it taught me how to kind of learn more about life through the sport itself.
Well, that's such a good example of realizing that if you're battling through something emotionally, or you're struggling to get a grasp on enjoying life, find something that you're working towards that one, you're good at, or you're noticeably able to get better at, and two, that you enjoy. It makes time go by. It's the Marek's way of shout out to Marek Komara, who wrote the book on
Mind without mind.
Mind over mind, right? Flow state. Like, you do those things and it makes you forget about all the things that make you stressed or sad or bullied in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I find it so important, man. Like, no matter how much someone is getting bullied, this feeling they get of sadness that comes from that is, once again, I'll just repeat myself, is I want to feel accepted. Someone talking to me in this way is not making me feel that way. So now if I have some sense of community, like doing basketball or joining the chess club or doing anything extracurricular that's getting me to expand my creativity, I should do. Hence why when you bring it back to the whole parent thing, parents should be encouraging their kids to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Right? And, we lived through COVID the past 2 years, and there's so much to say about what people chose to do with their time then, but you need to in a way put your kid in a position where they have to start doing something productive with their time, instead of they get bullied. Now from getting bullied, they actually, even more so, Khurram, don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
They even more so want to isolate themselves. I feel like that's a very common response. Is I got bullied, I put myself out there, I'm just going to hide in a corner.
And it's so much easier to bully now. All these bitches are fucking sending all these threats and saying all this shit that they would never say if it was face to face. What I say to you here might be different than what I say over text.
Must be scarier even now with technology, man.
Like,
because that doesn't leave school. You go home, bing, bing, bing. Your phone's ringing. It's buzzing.
Yeah.
Those same kids saying those things can attack you through your phone. And I bet you, for the most part, the kids aren't even expressing this to their loved ones at home because they don't want to stress their parents out with this stuff. So it's like, then who they go to? They may have a sibling, hopefully, to rely on them to be able to help. But it's like so much bottled up tension. It's sad.
And the bottled up tension, I think when you realize, like, especially the teenage years, your brain is forming and shaping into so many different ways that the stuff that you consume becomes your subconscious mind, right? Like, when you're going throughout your day, your brain is operating without thinking. So what you're consuming is slowly being programmed into your brain. Now, if you consciously choose to program your brain with the right nutrients or whatever it is online that you're consuming, then it's definitely going to make a change. And I think, like, especially at a younger age, with my kids, I'm definitely not going to be letting them have the free will to just be the boss. Bitch, I'm the fucking boss. You're going to listen to me. And I think what people are tending to do more now is listening to articles more than their own experience. Because the era that my dad lived in, he became a man. Like, his dad passed away at a younger age, and I think back to, like, how would my dad learn how to be a man himself? He didn't Google what's the best way to be a man. He didn't YouTube how do I become more masculine? How do I do this and that? Because there's at a point where even now, in the basketball world, for me, I don't like posting. There's a certain point where I stop liking to post information because it's so easy for clowns to just jump on and post whatever the fuck they want to post. And to a kid, they can't really differentiate between fool's gold and gold. To them, it just looks shiny. To them, they just see it and they're like, I trust this. And they might be trusting the wrong thing. So I think there's so much information now that kids are obviously trying to seek and grow and get better. But there's so much confusing, conflicting information that you're like, which one do I choose from? Is this person right? They went this route. Or is this person right? And they went this route. And I think my argument is both could be right. But choose to do so with your own experience rather than choose to do so by hearing what their experience was and believing in something and letting that belief have real estate in your mind more than your own experience itself.
That's facts. You got to go through it.
Yeah. You got to go through it to get through it. You can't just get through it just by watching a video.
Yeah, man. So true. I mean, you think I could be a jiu-jitsu master if I just sat here and just looked at people do jiu-jitsu on YouTube?
Yeah.
That's supplemental.
Mm-hmm.
That's in addition
Yeah.
to doing the drill itself, in addition to showing up to practice. You gotta show up or show out, man. How would you stand up to a bully as an adult and as a kid? Like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, man, like, shit, I'm out here getting bullied in the office, or I'm like a junior high school kid getting bullied, and it sucks. So easier said than done to just, face the bully head on. But, like, what advice would you give to someone who is noticing they're getting bullied, they don't like it, they want it to stop, and they want to grow from it?
Well, I think bullying is in its own form healthy, because if I didn't get bullied, I wouldn't have chose to do the things that I did and become the type of person that I wanted to become. I think bullying can be seen just like punishment, right? Like when you're training, do you see the assault bike as punishment or accountability? And when you start flipping that switch and saying, maybe this is bullying, but maybe it's also accountability. Because maybe if something that they're saying holds weight, because to me it did, if somebody's calling me fat, out of shape, I was fat, out of shape. Yeah, it hurt. It was bullying, but great. They told you something that's a real fact. So if you can switch your mind to it being more accountable than punishment in your mind, then you can do those things and you can actually learn to ask yourself. The only way you can actually grow to be the man you want to be is taking all of those things into factor and asking yourself, is this something that I even want? Right? That would obviously be the first thing. And then if it is, then if you want to change it, the power is in your hands. But if you believe in the bullying more as punishment, then you won't get better from it because you're going to hide from punishment. But if you see it as accountability, then maybe you'll see it as, okay, this might be something that I do want to become and I'm not there yet. So how can I create steps to actually become that person?
So you're perhaps looking at it like, if someone's saying things about you that really hurt you, that are getting underneath your skin, you are not appearing clearly to them how you want to be showcased or how you wish to be exemplified in society. So you're looking at it in a way where it's like, okay, well, prove to this person that you aren't what they say you are based off how they're viewing you. Even though what they're saying may not be true, they're just doing it to get underneath your skin. But you have to know yourself so well, and you have to know the journey you're on to not even let that phase you.
Yeah.
And let that hold you accountable to the things that you must continuously do to not just prove to that person, but prove to yourself that you're worthy.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to, that's why I said ask yourself first, is this what you want? Because you don't want to be proving facts to people that it doesn't even matter to them, right? Or it doesn't even matter to you. Why should you prove a fact that holds no weight to you and holds all the weight to them? That's giving them power.
Man.
So if you're choosing to reflect, assess, is this something that I want? And then you're doing it, then you're empowering yourself. Otherwise, you're just empowering the bully. And I think all the times of I actually never felt like I was getting bullied. I felt like it didn't feel like bullying to me. But I took notes. I kept receipts in my mind all the time. And I was like, oh, you think so-and-so? And even like, for example, when I started dunking, I remember the 3 months, and this is where Train in the Dark became Train in the Dark at the start, I remember a group of guys that I considered friends. I was like, I'm going to dunk in 3 months. And they're like, no, bro. Or how are you going to dunk? You can't even get over the rim right now, right? Like stuff like that. And obviously that's something that I always wanted. And then I stopped talking to them. I was like, you know what? I'll see you in 3 months. And actually within a month I started dunking. But I chose to formulate a game plan. I wrote down what 2 weeks at a time would look like. Every week I'm going to complete these 2 weeks, and I'm going to see how is it going to look after those 2 weeks and reassess, maybe make some changes. See what's working, see what's not working. But executing a game plan, there's nothing greater, because in this world that we live in now, with 15 seconds brings you all the joy and entertainment you need, you don't need 15 seconds. You need to have 2 weeks at a time to achieve something. There needs to be delayed gratification, and I think what kids are losing now is being visionaries, right? Like thinking a little bit further ahead. Where could this lead me in a month, in 2 months, in a year, versus where could this lead me after I post this 15-second TikTok?
Yeah, it's so true. You know, what you said reminds me so much of the things I would do to stand up to a bully at any age. I would first and foremost ask yourself, whose opinion about me and who I am matters the most? I think the first two people that should come to mind are your parents, right? Is this my mom and dad saying this to me, right? So why should it matter? Why should this have any weight? And if you're getting bullied by your parents, that's a podcast for a whole other day. Like, you know, under the impression that your parents are saying and doing everything to ensure that you are being the best version of yourself. If someone isn't your parent, why should you give a fuck about what they say? So don't even let it get to you. Number two, does this person know you better than you know yourself? You know yourself. You know wholeheartedly what you're capable of. So if whatever this person is saying is letting you get underneath your skin, they're not you. They don't know your journey. They don't know your story. They don't wake up in your body every day. They see a fraction of who you are.
And especially if you're getting bullied, you're forming a different version of yourself for them to see. That's not even you.
Yeah. And number three, don't even entertain them. Bullies are looking for you to get a response that you are just allowing them to have. They feed off that. That's energy to them. They want to suck your soul dry. And you don't let it happen. You give them a complete left field response, right? You thank them for saying what they did. You laugh at them. You laugh with them. You ignore them. You don't even give them a response. Not giving a response is a response after all.
It is.
But you do everything in your power to not let them phase you. And then through your actions and through what you do, you prove to them and yourself that you're far beyond what they told you. And I kind of in a way like what you said, that in a way you do need those bullies to let you know and understand that you aren't what people say you are. You know, you have to look and hear whatever those things are being said and evaluate yourself. Is that really me? It's not. Then why am I even letting 5 seconds of my time affect how I go about my life based off what this person said? So like there has to obviously be a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-assurance, a lot of strong self-esteem in these situations. And those are built around you working on yourself. And that's, once again, if we bring this back to what we said earlier, is if you're a kid doing absolutely nothing, not entertaining the idea of figuring out what your strengths are, then of course this is going to be more difficult. And that's why I'll bring it back to the parents. Is, are you just letting your kid, by the time 3:30 hits, go home and play video games all day and do it all over again? Like, anything that's going to get them to find something that is therapeutic and designed to do, because it takes them away from all the things that they're dealing with at school. And it's not just things like getting an A in class. It's the shit these kids say that actually get to them and make them feel like they're nothing. And then you build a society around people that turn 18 and they have no idea what the fuck to do.
Yeah, and
because they're scared. They're so worried because of everything that everyone has ever told them that they're incapable of being able to do. Fuck that.
Absolutely.
Like put that away. Take the time to build a skill. Whether you end up making money off it or not, at least it's something that gives you joy. It's like the soccer dads that still play soccer, the people that still go and play like ball hockey. because it's something that just, it's play.
Yeah.
Like, let yourself have that, and let it kind of drive some sense of competitiveness in you to want to prove to yourself and others that you're worth it.
Absolutely. Let me quickly check this real quick.
Yeah, man, of course. And plus, I think what people have to understand is, if someone's bullying you, they're bullying you from a place where it's because they're hurt. So when you know that if someone is taking time out of their day to make you feel like shit unwarranted, how hurt are they to say that in the first place? And one of my favorite things to say in those moments is, I like to go to a bully, if I've been in a situation, and be like, hey, just hold that thought. Is everything okay? Yeah. Do you want to talk about it?
I have a...
By the way, this episode is brought to you by Khurram's sliding camera. We hope that as you see this camera glide from side to side, your experience on the podcast is that much more amplified.
That much more amplified, because I think we care about the details, all of us. And if we wanted to be scrubs, then actually going back to bullying, if we wanted to be scrubs, then it wouldn't hurt. The bullying wouldn't hurt. I always say because like some kids will go home, and if they lose, it doesn't hurt them at all, right? So if it hurts you, that's a blessing, because some people can't even feel that. Some people aren't even born for them to necessarily it hurt them that bad where they need to take action. So if a bully is saying something to you and you don't like it, take it as self-reflection, and like you were saying, don't even entertain it. Entertain it by proving it to yourself, if it's your choice that that's what you want to do. I love this topic, because I think like what a lot of people don't know, and I talk about it with a lot of passion, is because you guys know this. And I remember when I told KB this about my suicide attempts. It's not something that I say lightly, but it's something that basketball was my therapy. Basketball was my getaway. But at a certain point, I let the belief of the depression and lack of sleep overpower everything else. I forgot about family. I forgot about everybody that existed in my life. And I made a very selfish decision myself based on what belief I created in my own mind. Right. And I think the more I choose to take action, and that's when I stopped taking action. Actually, when I was the most depressed, it was when I started believing in depression more and thinking about it more, and giving it more power than actually taking action. The more I took action, the more I started feeling better. The more I was able to control those feelings, because all these feelings are a form of you growing. When kids come to train, I ask them, how you feeling today? Happy, sad, mad, angry? What is it? Right? And whichever feeling it is, use that feeling in the training session. Oh, this guy pisses you off? What's his name? And they'll say it. And I'm like, okay, well, imagine them chasing you off this line. And if you don't go fast enough, they're just going to block your shot. And it gets the kid fired up. And they start using and channeling that energy. And guess what? I bet you, like, they go home, they don't see the bully the same way anymore. They see it as a joke now. It's like, oh, I use this in training now, right? And when you can...
It's a healthy way of using the power of a bully to your advantage.
Yeah, and before, like, I used to only use angry feelings. Like, that's why I was so angry all the time. I used to have a playlist on my iPhone, I still do, where in the morning time, it was a playlist called Fuck Y'all, right? And it was just angry songs, angry songs, angry songs. And after 9, I would listen to something a little bit more mellow. But now that I've kind of gotten into better understanding, if I'm feeling sad, whatever it is, all these feelings can be regulated through action, right? So if I'm feeling sad, I'll listen to sad music on the way to training, right? I'll listen to like sad music on the assault bike, right? Of all places. And it gets me, it releases that pain or releases that feeling. And when you can release those feelings, instead of lashing out, instead of crying, instead of doing other things, then it gives you more empowerment because you put it to purpose. And once you figure that out, that's where the real estate of depression no longer exists in your mind nearly as much. Because at a certain point, like I was saying, basketball was always there for me. And basketball was my escape. Basketball was my therapy. But what happens when basketball no longer works as your therapy? That's when my world started crumbling down. We're at a certain point where the thing that used to make me forget about depression no longer worked. And I let it consume me so much that I left the team. Not many people like actually know this, but for a whole month, I sent an email to my parents for the first time explaining to them about my depression since I was like 6 years old. And then all the way till now, as a grown man, I think it was like 27, 28, I had to email my coach, and my coach was very good about it. All these people were trying to provide me with the best resource. And what my coach did for me, which I'll remember to this day, is he said, you know what, switch your classes to online, because if you need basketball as a therapy, it'll be here for you when you're back. And then that way you're not leaving the whole semester and just quitting on the team. And at the time I remember thinking, I was like, man, he doesn't understand. Like I'm in such a bad spot that I don't even want to play basketball. But now when I reflect back on it, he gave me an alternate option. Like, if you do choose to feel better, here's another way to kind of cope and just be around people. And training makes you stronger. I think what really impacted me was the lack of sleep plus training, because that's when I got delusional. So I think the work is never one to run from. If you are getting bullied, you got to remember these kids are kids, right? They're, like you said, they're going through their own thing. You don't even have to ask them. But when you don't entertain their thoughts, then it makes them question what they're saying more, right? Like, if you give them a response, they know how you feel. But there's nothing, if you don't give them any response, now their imagination is led to believe all sorts of things. If you can see how crazy your imagination can get with your own life, just imagine what their imagination goes to, where it's like, okay, I said this, but he didn't respond to anything. He didn't say anything positive, negative. How does he feel about what I said? Wait, should have I said that? Should have I even said it in this type of way? Maybe that's not the right thing to say. But as a kid, like, kids are kids. Like, bullying is, I don't think a kid grows up and be like, I'm gonna bully this kid. I'm gonna bully this kid. I think they're, like you said, at a point where they're just going through their own things, and in order for them to get through their own life, they need to bully. And in order for you to get through your own life, if that's what's happening to you, they're just hitting you with reality. Because as a kid, friends don't tell you reality as much as the bully does. If you think about it, friends want to be friends with you. Bullies tell you the shit that's really going on with you, and you're like, oh, he knows about this? He knows that I'm out of shape? He knows I have a mushroom cut? Right? Like, all these things. And then, bro, like, I've been cutting my own hair since grade 10. At a certain point, I was like, enough with the bullying. I'm not gonna joke around and be like, haha, mushroom cut. I'm gonna do something about it. At a certain point, I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna find a way to do it. And I think that trickles down into life. And now as adults, it's easier to talk about those things and just kind of move forward with it. And if you're ever at a point where depression is over-consuming you, or any feeling is over-consuming you, don't give it the power. Like, if you choose to believe in it more, it becomes reality more, right? But if you choose to make action or take action from it, then you're going to have a different outcome. And that different outcome is going to give you the power to understand how to deal with it. Because for me, it's not like I don't feel depressed. Actually, it's harder now. Sometimes I try to, but I just don't feel it the same way. Once I got to a certain level of being competent enough to be able to achieve certain things, and on top of that, learn how to regulate my emotion. Because I think if you're trying to get rid of depression at the start, you're gonna have to do the hard work. It's not gonna happen without the hard work. The hard work is the main ingredient of overcoming it.
That's beautiful, man. Wow. I just, want to take a second to acknowledge and appreciate you for being able to share, those moments you had where you did feel suicidal and depressed, and knowing that that's a thing of the past, and to come out and be able to speak on that. I know our audience is going to strongly be able to benefit from that type of advice. Action precedes motivation. Everyone is trying to find the next life hack on how to be motivated. But let's face it, showing up is the prescription to motivation. And when you take that action, in many ways and things that we do is, I never personally think of what the actual, not focus much on the outcome of my competitions, just focus on showing up.
Yeah.
When I show up, if I don't show up, I'm not competing. So show up, go to practice. And with everything you shared, man, it's just a strong reminder to figure out ways in which audit how you show up, and be able to not go back to the point we made about hiding in the closet. Go out there and keep doing all the things you're doing, and prove to yourself that you're just as capable as others in fitting in, and how you see yourself fitting in. And I think it's a big kudos to your coach for recognizing that you are guilty of this. We all are. When life gets really hard, for some reason, the first thing we want to get rid of is the thing that's holding it all together. It's crazy. I see this in when people are in crisis mode, they get rid of their dream job. When people are in this state of having mental health concerns, they get rid of working out. It's the one thing that's keeping them together. It's no, you had such a great life coach, coach in basketball and life coach for that matter, who said, listen, let's find a different way of going about your life so you can still play.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to do, as well as not letting the excuses in your head. If you're getting bullied and you want to feel isolated and you start feeling depressed and you start feeling suicidal, don't let that prevent you from still going out there. And as much as it's going to be that much more difficult, let's face it, when you're in a negative state, how much more unlikely do you want to compete, go to jiu-jitsu, go train, all these things that I love doing? Of course. But I don't tell myself, I got to go and train. I'm going to sweat. I'm going to learn new moves. I got to think so hard. No, I'm just going to pack my gi. I'm going to show up. That's it. So if you just have that mentality of showing up in the places you do, the natural process of you going through some of the things that you're not putting high expectations on are going to excite you, and they're going to surprise you, and they're going to give you fuel to keep pushing forward, instead of feeling like the last thing someone said is an external source to you defining where and how you fit in this life. That doesn't get in the way of who you believe you are and what you're capable of being able to do. And if we do that, we end bullying. And I know that's, far-fetched, but at least you're in the process of ending it for yourself. So if you saw any value in this episode, share it with a friend, share it online. Let us know about how you personally have combated bullying. We'd love to hear it. And this is another special on the Second Floor podcast, where we talk about how to survive and thrive and keep the good vibes going. My man. Thank you, Top G. Let's go.